The alien marketplace was alive with strange sounds, glowing lights, and the smell of foods no human could name. Tall creatures with silver skin bargained loudly, while short ones with 4 arms carried heavy baskets. In the middle of all this noise walked a human trader named Daniel. He had been on this colony for only 3 days, hoping to sell some tools and buy rare supplies. But on this evening, something unusual happened. As Daniel passed a row of stalls, a small figure stepped into his path. It was a girl, no more than 10 years old by human measure, though her skin was a pale shade of blue, and her eyes were bright like tiny moons. Her clothes were torn, and her small hands held a bundle wrapped in cloth. She looked up at him with trembling lips. "Take my toys, human," she whispered, her voice weak but urgent. "I need money to buy medicine for my mother." Daniel froze. He had heard many things in alien markets, offers of gems, weapons, and even lies. But never had he heard such a plea from a child. He looked down at her bundle. When she unwrapped it slightly, he saw small objects, handmade toys carved from crystal, glowing faintly as if holding a light inside. "Why are you selling these?" Daniel asked gently. "They must be precious to you." The girl pressed the toys closer to him, her voice breaking. "Please, she will not live if I cannot buy the medicine. These are all I have." Daniel felt a sharp pain in his chest. In his travels, he had seen poor traders and starving workers. But there was something different about this moment. Something in the child's eyes made him feel that this was not just a common act of desperation. Her fear was deeper, heavier, as if she carried a secret too big for her small frame. From the corner of his eye, Daniel noticed movement. 2 tall figures stood in the distance, half hidden in the crowd. They seemed to be watching. He pretended not to see them, but their eyes glowed faint red, and their presence made the air feel colder. He lowered his voice. "Who are those men?" he asked her. The girl flinched, her gaze darting quickly. "Do not look at them. Please, just take the toys. Give me the credits and forget me." Her words only deepened Daniel's suspicion. Why would simple toys draw the attention of such dangerous-looking figures? He took one of the crystal toys into his hand. It was shaped like a bird, delicate and perfect. As he touched it, the crystal shimmered as though alive for a brief second. He blinked, unsure if it was a trick of the light. "These are not ordinary toys," Daniel said softly. The girl's eyes filled with tears. "I know, but they are all I have. My father made them before he was taken." Her small body shook, but she held her head high. "If you do not help me, my mother will die tonight." Daniel's instinct screamed at him. This was no ordinary trade. The glowing toys, the men watching from the shadows, the desperation in her voice, everything pointed to danger. And yet, how could he walk away? A child begging him to save her mother. Could he really turn his back? The marketplace grew louder, but Daniel felt as if the world had gone quiet around them. His heart beat heavily in his chest. He wanted to ask more. Who was her father? Why were these toys glowing? Who were the men watching? But before he could speak again, the girl grabbed his hand and pressed the bundle of toys into it. "Please," she whispered fiercely. "Take them. If they see me with them, they will hurt us. You are human. They will not suspect you." Daniel's breath caught. She was not only begging for money, she was asking him to protect something far more dangerous. His eyes darted back to the 2 figures in the crowd. They were closer now, moving slowly, pretending to browse but never looking away from the girl. For the first time in a long while, Daniel felt the chill of fear on his skin. He wanted to turn around and leave. He wanted to say it was not his problem. But the girl's eyes held him. They were not just the eyes of a desperate child. They carried the weight of a secret war. A silent cry for help that no one else could hear. "All right," Daniel said at last, his voice firm, though his hands trembled. I'll help you." The girl's lips quivered as if she wanted to smile but was too afraid. She handed him the last of her toys and whispered, "Meet me at the old fountain tonight. I will give you the truth." Before Daniel could reply, she darted away into the crowd, vanishing like a shadow. The two tall figures followed her with their eyes. But when they saw Daniel holding the toys, their red gaze turned toward him instead. A heavy feeling filled the air like a storm about to break. Daniel looked down at the glowing toys in his hands. They pulsed faintly, as if alive. He knew then that he had stepped into something far greater than a marketplace trade. Something that might cost him more than credits. Something that could change his life forever. And in the distance, thunder rolled. The night was heavy with silence when Daniel walked toward the old fountain. The alien colony's streets, usually crowded with merchants and glowing lanterns, now lay empty. Strange winds carried dust and whispers through the air, and the shadows seemed alive. He kept one hand on his belt, close to the small blaster he carried for safety, but even that felt useless tonight. In his other hand, wrapped tightly, were the crystal toys the girl had given him. They glowed faintly beneath the cloth, as though something inside them breathed. Daniel had not told anyone what happened earlier, but he had not been able to stop thinking about it. The girl's words haunted him. "Meet me at the old fountain. I will give you the truth." When he reached the fountain, its stone edges cracked and dry from years of neglect. She was already waiting. Her small frame was curled up on the side, her arms hugging her knees. The moonlight touched her pale blue skin, making her look fragile, almost like glass. "You came," she whispered, relief clear in her eyes. Daniel crouched near her. "Of course, I came, but I need answers. What are these toys, really? Why were those men watching you?" The girl hesitated. Her fingers dug into the stone, as if she was afraid the earth itself would hear her words. Finally, she said, "They are not toys. They are pieces of something much older. My father called them fragments of the heart." Daniel frowned. "Fragments of what?" "A weapon," she said quietly. Her voice cracked with fear. "A weapon that once destroyed worlds." His heart skipped. He unwrapped the bundle carefully and looked again at the crystal carvings. To human eyes, they seemed like harmless trinkets of bird. A star, a small animal, but now, with her words, they felt heavier. "Dangerous? You're telling me these are weapons?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Not complete weapons," she explained. "Each one is only a part. Alone, they are weak. But if the hunters gather them all, they will awaken the full heart of ash. My father died protecting these pieces so the hunters could never succeed." Daniel's stomach tightened. The hunters? He remembered the two tall figures with red eyes, cold, patient, dangerous. "And now they're after you and your mother." The girl nodded. Her eyes filled with tears, but she held them back. "They will not stop. They believe the fragments belong to their kind. But if they bring them together, many will die. That is why I must sell them to strangers, hide them, scatter them anything to keep the hunters away. But my mother is sick. Without medicine, she will." Her voice broke, and she could not finish. Daniel looked at her, torn between reason and his heart. He was a traitor, not a soldier. He should have walked away. But every time he looked into her silver eyes, he saw not just fear, but a spark of hope that she refused to let die. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice, "if what you're saying is true, selling these to random strangers is just as dangerous. What if they fall into the wrong hands?" Her lip trembled. "Then what choice do I have? My mother will die before sunrise. I cannot guard them alone. And you," she stopped, studying him carefully, as if weighing his soul. "You are human. You do not belong to their wars. Maybe you can keep them safe. Maybe you can help me. Daniel felt the weight of her words pressing on him. The simple marketplace trade had now become a bargain with fate. If he agreed, he would be carrying fragments of a weapon that others were willing to kill for. If he refused, a child would lose her mother, and the fragments might still end up in evil hands. "Show me your mother," he said finally. The girl's eyes widened. "You will come." "Yes. If I am to help you, I need to see the truth with my own eyes." She stood quickly, her thin figure shaking with relief. Without another word, she guided him through narrow alleys. The streets grew darker, the air colder. They passed broken signs, shuttered homes, and walls marked with strange alien runes. Daniel noticed some of the symbols matched the carvings on the toys. At last, they stopped before a crumbling house at the edge of the colony. Inside, lying on a worn bed, was her mother. The woman's skin was pale, almost gray, her breathing shallow. Even in sickness, she carried a certain dignity, as if she had once been strong and proud. Her eyes flickered open when Daniel entered. Who is this?" she asked weakly. The girl knelt beside her. "A human. He is kind. He has the fragments. He will help us." Daniel placed the toys gently on the table. Their faint glow lit up the dim room. For a moment, the mother's eyes widened with both fear and sorrow. "You should not be here, human," she whispered. "If the hunters see you with these, they will come for you too. Leave while you still can." Daniel's jaw tightened. "If I leave, they will come for you instead. And I don't walk away from children begging in the street." The mother tried to speak again, but a violent cough shook her body. The girl held her, tears finally spilling down her face. Daniel's hands curled into fists. That was the moment he made his decision. He would not abandon them. "I'll get the medicine," he said. His voice was steady now, filled with purpose. "But after that, we find a way to keep these fragments safe. Together." The girl looked up at him with trembling hope. But outside, in the night, unseen footsteps echoed near the broken house. The hunters were already closing in. The night stretched long over the alien colony, but Daniel could not rest. The image of the sick woman coughing, her daughter clutching her hand with desperate tears, would not leave his mind. He had promised to help, yet his own fear pressed against him like a heavy weight. The glowing fragments, the so-called toy, still rested in his bag, their faint shimmer leaking through the cloth like starlight. Daniel sat by the broken window of his small inn room, watching the streets below. The marketplace had gone silent, but shadows moved here and there, as if the colony itself was breathing in fear. Somewhere out there, the hunters searched. He remembered their red eyes, cold, calculating. Patient as he debated whether to leave the colony at dawn, a sudden noise broke his thoughts. A faint scritch came from beneath his door. He turned sharply, hand reaching for his blaster. Slowly, he stepped closer and bent down. A folded piece of paper lay on the floor. Someone had slipped it under without a sound. His pulse quickened. He unfolded it with care. The message was short, written in rough strokes. "Leave the child. Leave the toys. If you stay, you die." Daniel stared at the words, his jaw tightening. Whoever wrote this knew exactly what he carried. They knew he had met the girl. His stomach turned cold. He looked outside quickly, but the street was empty. Only silence, only shadows. He crushed the note in his fist. He had been warned. But by whom? The hunters themselves, or someone else who feared them? By morning, Daniel decided he could not wait. He left the inn, keeping the fragments hidden under his jacket, and made his way back to the crumbling house where the alien girl and her mother lived. The door creaked as he entered, and at once the girl rushed to him. "You came back," she said, her voice trembling between fear and relief. Daniel knelt. "I found a note. Someone knows about us. You're in more danger than I thought." Her small face paled. Then we must run. If the hunters find the fragments, we won't run yet," Daniel cut in. "Running without medicine will not save your mother. First, we get what she needs. Then we plan our escape." The girl nodded, though her hands shook. He turned to the weak woman lying on the bed. "Do you have any enemies besides the hunters?" he asked, her dim eyes opened slowly. "The hunters are enough. They know the fragments call to each other. If you carry even one, it will draw them like blood draws beasts." "You should not save your strength," Daniel said firmly. "I've made my choice." Later, Daniel stepped out with the girl to the busy trade district. He had disguised the bundle in a plain bag, but his every step felt heavy. He bought food and basic medicine from a vendor who eyed him with suspicion. The girl stayed close, clutching his sleeve. "Why are you helping us?" she asked softly, almost like she feared the answer. Daniel gave a dry laugh. "Because I've seen enough war. Enough people dying while others looked away. I won't be one of those who look away." For the first time, the girl smiled faintly. But that smile vanished quickly. From across the street, Daniel felt it, eyes on them. The same two hunters from before, tall and unblinking, their red eyes sharp as blades. They stood near a stall, pretending to examine goods, but their gaze never left him. Daniel pulled the girl closer. "Don't look. Just walk." But the hunters began to move. They hurried through narrow alleys, turning corners fast. Daniel's heart pounded. His hand brushed the blaster at his side, but he knew it would be useless against those towering figures. At last, they slipped into a deserted passage. The girl gasped for breath. They won't stop. They can smell the fragments. "They'll follow until quiet," Daniel whispered. He pressed her against the wall, listening. Heavy footsteps echoed faintly behind them. The hunters were close. Then, out of nowhere, a voice came from above. "You are marked now, human. You carry what is forbidden." Daniel spun, aiming his blaster upward. A cloaked figure crouched on the roof, hidden in shadow. Their voice was neither kind nor cruel, but carried weight like stone. "Who are you?" Daniel demanded. "Not your enemy. Not yet. But if you keep the fragments, death will follow you everywhere." The figure's voice dropped lower. "Burn them. Leave them. Only then will the hunters pass you by." The girl stepped forward, shaking her head fiercely. "No, my father gave his life to protect them. They must not be destroyed." The cloaked figure tilted its head, almost pitying. "Then you doom yourselves. And him." Daniel felt his throat tighten. Another warning. First, the note. Now this. The hunters closing in and strange figures whispering from rooftops. The danger was growing. But when he looked at the girl, clutching his sleeve with wide eyes, he knew what he had to say. "I won't burn them," Daniel said firmly. "And I won't leave her." The figure let out a long sigh, almost like sorrow. "Then prepare yourself, human. The hunters are closer than you think." And with that, the stranger vanished into the night, leaving only silence. Daniel stood frozen. The girl pressed against him, her body trembling. The weight of the fragments in his bag seemed heavier than ever before. He knew now that he had walked into a storm far greater than he imagined. But he also knew this. There was no turning back. Daniel hardly slept that night. His mind replayed the warnings again, and again the note slipped under his door. The cloaked figure on the roof, the hunter's glowing red eyes following his every move. Everyone wanted the same thing, the fragments. Everyone warned him to leave them, destroy them, or hand them over. But every time Daniel thought about giving them up, he remembered the girl's trembling voice, begging for medicine. He remembered the sick mother lying helpless in the broken house. And he remembered his own promise. I'll help you. The sun rose weakly over the alien colony, bathing the crumbling streets in dull light. Daniel sat at the edge of his bed, the wrapped fragments in his hands. They pulsed faintly, as though alive, as though waiting for him to decide. He muttered to himself, "If I keep them, the hunters will never stop. If I destroy them, maybe she and her mother are safe. But if they really are pieces of some ancient weapon—" His voice trailed off. Destroying them might not even be possible. A knock startled him. His hand went instantly to his blaster. But when he opened the door, it was the girl. She stood there with a worried face, her clothes even more torn, her eyes tired from lack of sleep. "They came last night," she whispered quickly. "The hunters searched near our house. We had to hide in the cellar. They are getting closer." Daniel felt his chest tighten. "Then we don't have much time." They sat together in the small inn room, the air tense with unspoken fear. Daniel unwrapped the fragments and placed them on the table. The girl stared at them, her small hands curling into fists. "My father died for these," she said softly. "He told me they must never be given to the hunters. He said one day someone brave would carry them, someone who would not run away." Daniel sighed. "Brave, huh? I'm just a trader. I came here to sell tools and leave with credits. I didn't sign up for this war." "But you stayed," she whispered. "That makes you different." Her words cut through him more deeply than any blade. He looked at the fragments again. They glowed faintly in the dim light, and for a moment he thought he heard a low hum. "Okay." He closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead. This was it. He had to choose. Later that day, Daniel walked with the girl through the colony's busy district. He had purchased more medicine and food. His plan was forming, though it terrified him. As they walked, a voice suddenly called out from the shadows. "Human." Daniel turned sharply. The cloaked figure from before stood in a narrow alley, watching them. The girl shrank back, clutching his sleeve. "You still carry them," the figure said. "You ignored the warning. Now the choice is upon you." Daniel stepped forward, his voice firm. "If I destroy them, will the hunters stop?" The figure tilted its head. "Perhaps. Or perhaps their hunger will only grow. They seek power, not peace. Once the fragments are gone, they will turn to other worlds." "Other children?" Daniel's jaw clenched. "So what am I supposed to do?" "Keep them until they kill me." The cloaked figure's voice was calm. "You must guard them, or you must find a place where they cannot be reached. But either path will break you, human. You must decide your life, or their hope." Daniel felt the girl's small hand tighten around his arm. He looked down into her silver eyes. Fear, yes, but also trust. Pure trust. He turned back to the figure. "Then I choose. I won't abandon her. I'll protect the fragments, whatever it takes." The figure stared at him for a long moment, then bowed its head slightly. "So be it. But remember, human, your choice has bound you to their fate. The hunters will come for you now." And then the figure melted back into the shadows, gone like smoke. That night, Daniel returned to the broken house with the girl. He gave the medicine to her mother, helping her drink carefully. The woman's breathing eased slightly, though her strength was still weak. "You've put yourself in danger for us," she whispered, her voice fragile. "Why?" Daniel hesitated, then answered honestly. "Because no one else would. And because sometimes the right choice is the hardest one." Her lips curved into the faintest smile before exhaustion pulled her back into sleep. The girl looked at Daniel with wide eyes. "So you will stay with us, even if the hunters come?" Daniel rested his hand on the fragments, their faint glow reflecting in his tired eyes. "Yes, I'll stay. And if the hunters want these, they'll have to go through me." Outside, the night wind howled, carrying with it an unspoken promise. The hunters were watching, waiting, and now Daniel had declared himself their enemy. The choice was made. There was no turning back. The door rattled as heavy boots struck the ground outside. Daniel pressed his back against the wall, blaster ready. The girl hid behind him, clutching her mother's frail hand. The fragments on the table pulsed brighter, their glow filling the room like silent alarm bells. The hunters were here. A low, metallic voice echoed through the street. "Human, hand over the fragments. Leave the child. Live." Daniel's jaw tightened. He glanced at the girl, her silver eyes wide with fear. He could walk out now, toss the crystals at their feet, and maybe they would let him live. But he knew they were liars. They wouldn't spare the girl. They wouldn't spare anyone. He whispered sharply, "We move. Now." He snatched the fragments, wrapping them quickly, and helped the mother to her feet. She staggered, weak, but her daughter supported her. The hunters outside struck the door again, this time harder. Splinters fell from the wood. Daniel guided them to the back of the house. Out the alley, fast. The girl nodded, half dragging her mother as they slipped through the broken door behind the house. The night air was cold, filled with the hum of danger. Daniel looked back once and saw the front door burst inward. Red eyes glowed in the darkness, scanning. Searching, the chase had begun. They ran through narrow alleys, their feet pounding against the stone. The mother struggled, coughing, but Daniel supported her as best he could. The girl darted ahead, guiding them with surprising speed. "This way," she called. "I know the back paths." Behind them, heavy footsteps echoed, steady and relentless. The hunters did not rush. They didn't need to. Their long strides ate the ground. Their glowing eyes cut through the night like burning stars. Daniel's heart thundered. He turned a corner sharply, pressing the others against a wall as a searchlight swept across the street. The hunters had released drone small, insect-like machines that buzzed through the air, scanning alleys. Their red beams cut across walls, searching. "Keep moving," Daniel whispered. "If we stop, we're dead." They pushed through a broken archway and entered an abandoned section of the colony. Crumbled walls leaned like tired giants, and weeds grew through cracked stone. Here, the streets were empty, forgotten. But the hunters followed still, their shadows stretching long behind them. The girl stopped suddenly, pointing toward an old sewer grate. "Down there?" Daniel frowned. "You're sure?" She nodded. "I used to hide here when they patrolled. They never search below." Daniel wasted no time. He pried the grate open and lowered the mother carefully inside. The girl followed, and finally Daniel dropped down. The air was damp, foul, but the tunnels gave them cover. For a brief moment, silence. Only the sound of dripping water and the mother's weak breaths. Daniel leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "We bought some time, but not much." The girl stared at him, her eyes full of determination despite her small size. "They won't stop. Not until one of us is gone." Daniel nodded grimly. She was right. The silence broke suddenly. A metallic screech echoed down the tunnels. Daniel's blood ran cold. The hunters' drones had found the grate. Red beams cut through the dark as the machines swarmed in. Their wings buzzed like knives. Daniel fired his blaster. Blue flashes lit the tunnel, burning one drone to ash. Another swooped low, its talons reaching for the girl, but Daniel kicked it hard against the wall, smashing its frame. Sparks burst in the dark. "Run," he shouted. They sprinted deeper into the tunnels, water splashing under their feet. The drones swarmed behind them, faster than hunters, but less cautious. Daniel turned and fired again, taking down two more, but more came. Their beams scanned the fragments, their screeches echoing through the stone. The girl clutched Daniel's sleeve. "They're leading the hunters to us." Daniel cursed under his breath. "Then we get out before the big ones arrive." At last, the tunnel opened into a wide chamber where the ceiling had collapsed, revealing the night sky above. Daniel climbed the rubble first, pulling the girl up, then helping her mother. He hauled himself last, breathing hard as they reached the surface. But when he looked up, his stomach dropped. Two hunters stood at the edge of the ruins, their tall figures glowing with crimson light. Their eyes locked on him. The ground shook as they stepped forward. Their voices rumbled like thunder. "Human, you carry what is forbidden. Surrender or be broken." Daniel raised his blaster, though his hands trembled. "You'll have to break me then." The girl stood beside him, clutching one of the glowing fragments. Her small voice rose, trembling but strong. "My father died to keep these from you, and now? So will we, if we must." The fragments pulsed, brighter than ever, as though answering her courage. A low hum spread through the ruins, shaking the ground. The hunters paused, their red eyes narrowing. Daniel felt the vibration in his bones, the shards alive in his hand. He didn't know if they would protect him or destroy him. But one thing was clear: there was no running now. The chase had led them to this moment. And the real battle was about to begin. The ruins trembled as the hunters stepped closer. Their armored bodies glowed faint red, and their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Daniel stood in front of the girl and her mother, blaster raised, though he knew it was like aiming a pebble at a storm. The girl gripped one glowing fragment tightly against her chest. The crystal pulsed brighter with every step the hunters took, as if the danger itself fed its light. Daniel's heart pounded. His mind screamed at him to run, to hide, to save himself. But his body did not move. He had made a promise, and promises meant more than survival. The hunters' voices boomed like thunder. "Human, step aside. You cannot win." Daniel clenched his jaw. "Maybe not, but I can make sure you don't win either." And then the hunters charged. The ground shook under their heavy steps. Daniel fired his blaster, the blue flashes cracking against their armor. One hunter staggered slightly, but kept advancing, unfazed. Their weapons lit with red energy, sparks flying as they prepared to strike. "Run!" Daniel shouted to the girl and her mother. "Now!" The girl refused, clutching his sleeve. "No, we can't leave you." "Go!" he roared. "You're the reason I'm fighting." Tears streamed down her face, but finally she pulled her mother and dragged her toward the broken walls. Daniel turned back just as the first hunter swung. He ducked, the blade of red energy slicing the air above his head. The heat burned across his skin. He fired again, aiming for the joints in their armor. The hunter growled, stepping back slightly, but the second one came from the side. Daniel barely rolled out of the way as the ground cracked where the weapon struck. Dust exploded around him. Light exploded through the ruins. For one breathless moment, everything vanished, dust, stone, even the hunter's towering shadows. Daniel stood at the center, his body surrounded by the fragments' glow. His face was pale, sweat dripping down, but his eyes were steady. The hunters staggered back, shielding their glowing eyes. The fragments pulsed like living hearts, their energy burning brighter than any weapon the hunters carried. Daniel raised his trembling hand, and the shards answered. They spun around him, forming a ring of light. Each fragment sang in harmony, the sound low and powerful, echoing through the broken colony like the memory of forgotten battles. The hunters roared, "This cannot be. A human cannot wield the heart." Daniel's lips curved into a faint smile. "Looks like someone forgot to ask the fragments what they wanted." With one final push, the light burst outward, slamming into the hunters. Their armored bodies flew across the ruins, crashing into the stone with thunderous force. Red sparks scattered. Their weapons broke, their voices silenced. For the first time, fear flickered in their eyes, but the power cost Daniel everything. The fragments dimmed, their glow fading as they fell back into his hands. His knees buckled. He fell hard to the ground, coughing, blood staining his lips. The girl rushed to him, tears streaming down her face. "Daniel, don't leave us, please." He looked at her, his voice weak but steady. "You're safe now. Your mother. You both live. That's enough." Her small hands gripped his tightly. "No, you promised to protect us. You can't die." Daniel tried to laugh, but it came out broken. "I kept my promise. As long as you live." The promise stands. The hunters, battered and broken, crawled from the rubble. Their red eyes still burned, but their steps were unsteady. One of them rasped in a guttural voice, "This is not the end. The prophecy has begun. Others will come." The girl's mother, leaning weakly against the wall, raised her voice despite her pain. "Then let them come. The heart has chosen. You cannot stop what has awakened." The hunters hissed, but they staggered away, retreating into the shadows of the colony. Their footsteps faded, leaving only silence and smoke. Daniel collapsed fully now, his body refusing to move. His vision blurred, the world slipping away. But the girl's face stayed clear, her silver eyes shining with tears. Her grip fierce, as though refusing to let go of his soul. "Daniel," she whispered, "you are not just a traitor. You're our guardian. Don't leave me." His breathing slowed. His voice was barely a whisper. "Then remember me. Tell them. A human stood for you. Tell them not all men walk away." The fragments pulsed once more, then dimmed, as if honoring his words. And then Daniel's eyes closed. Silence filled the ruins. The girl buried her face against his chest, sobbing quietly. Her mother placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. "He gave everything for us," the woman whispered. "His sacrifice will not be forgotten." The girl wiped her tears, her small body shaking, but her eyes hardened with new fire. She picked up the fragments, clutching them close. "No," she said firmly. "It won't end like this. His story will spread. Every colony will know a human fought for us. And when the hunters return, we will fight back." Her mother looked at her in surprise, but she saw the truth in her daughter's eyes. The fragments pulsed faintly again, as though agreeing. Days later, whispers spread through the colony. Merchants, wanderers, and survivors spoke of the night the hunters were defeated. They spoke of the strange human who carried forbidden fragments and stood against death. Some called him a fool. Others called him a savior. But to the girl, he was something greater, her protector, her family. The reason her mother still breathed. She stood at the old fountain, the place where it had all begun, holding the fragments. The colony bustled around her, but she did not feel small anymore. Daniel's voice lived in her memory, steady and strong. "As long as you live, the promise stands." And so she made her own promise. "I'll carry them now," she whispered. "I'll keep your fight alive. When the hunters return, I'll be ready. You gave me your courage. Now I'll give it back to the stars." The fragments glowed softly in her hands, as though sealing her vow far beyond the colony. In the endless dark of space, the hunters' retreating ship sent its signal. Red light pulsed through their council chambers, carrying a single message across the void. The heart has chosen. The prophecy is alive. Prepare the armies, and in the silence of the stars, war began to stir again. Daniel's body lay buried in the ruins, but his story had only just begun. The human who gave everything for an alien child had planted a seed of defiance that no army could crush. His sacrifice was not an ending, was the start of a legend. And legends never die. Asterisk light exploded through the ruins. For one breathless moment, everything vanished, dust, stone, even the hunter's towering shadows. Daniel stood at the center, his body surrounded by the fragments' glow. His face was pale, sweat dripping down, but his eyes were steady. The hunters staggered back, shielding their glowing eyes. The fragments pulsed like living hearts, their energy burning brighter than any weapon the hunters carried. Daniel raised his trembling hand, and the shards answered. They spun around him, forming a ring of light. Each fragment sang in harmony, the sound low and powerful, echoing through the broken colony like the memory of forgotten battles. The hunters roared, "This cannot be. A human cannot wield the heart." Daniel's lips curved into a faint smile. Looks like someone forgot to ask the fragments what they wanted. With one final push, the light burst outward, slamming into the hunters. Their armored bodies flew across the ruins, crashing into the stone with thunderous force. Red sparks scattered. Their weapons broke, their voices silenced. For the first time, fear flickered in their eyes. But the power cost Daniel everything. The fragments dimmed, their glow fading as they fell back into his hands. His knees buckled. He fell hard to the ground, coughing, blood staining his lips. The girl rushed to him, tears streaming down her face. "Daniel, don't leave us, please." He looked at her, his voice weak but steady. "You're safe now. Your mother. You both live. That's enough." Her small hands gripped his tightly. "No, you promised to protect us. You can't die." Daniel tried to laugh, but it came out broken. "I kept my promise. As long as you live. The promise stands." The hunters, battered and broken, crawled from the rubble. Their red eyes still burned, but their steps were unsteady. One of them rasped in a guttural voice, "This is not the end. The prophecy has begun. Others will come." The girl's mother, leaning weakly against the wall, raised her voice despite her pain. "Then let them come. The heart has chosen. You cannot stop what has awakened." The hunters hissed, but they staggered away, retreating into the shadows of the colony. Their footsteps faded, leaving only silence and smoke. Daniel collapsed fully now, his body refusing to move. His vision blurred, the world slipping away. But the girl's face stayed clear, her silver eyes shining with tears, her grip fierce as though refusing to let go of his soul. "Daniel," she whispered, "you are not just a traitor. You're our guardian. Don't leave me." His breathing slowed. His voice was barely a whisper. "Then remember me. Tell them. A human stood for you. Tell them not all men walk away." The fragments pulsed once more, then dimmed, as if honoring his words. And then Daniel's eyes closed. Silence filled the ruins. The girl buried her face against his chest, sobbing quietly. Her mother placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. "He gave everything for us," the woman whispered. "His sacrifice will not be forgotten." The girl wiped her tears, her small body shaking, but her eyes hardened with new fire. She picked up the fragments, clutching them close. "No," she said firmly. "It won't end like this. His story will spread. Every colony will know a human fought for us. And when the hunters return, we will fight back." Her mother looked at her in surprise, but she saw the truth in her daughter's eyes. The fragments pulsed faintly again, as though agreeing. Days later, whispers spread through the colony. Merchants, wanderers, and survivors spoke of the night the hunters were defeated. They spoke of the strange human who carried forbidden fragments and stood against death. Some called him a fool. Others called him a savior. But to the girl, He was something greater, her protector, her family. The reason her mother still breathed. She stood at the old fountain, the place where it had all begun, holding the fragments. The colony bustled around her, but she did not feel small anymore. Daniel's voice lived in her memory, steady and strong. As long as you live, the promise stands. And so she made her own promise. I'll carry them now, she whispered. I'll keep your fight alive. When the hunters return, I'll be ready. You gave me your courage. Now I'll give it back to the stars. The fragments glowed softly in her hands, as though sealing her vow far beyond the colony. In the endless dark of space, the hunter's retreating ship sent its signal. Red light pulsed through their council chambers, carrying a single message across the void. The heart has chosen. The prophecy is alive. Prepare the armies, and in the silence of the stars, war began to stir again. Daniel's body lay buried in the ruins, but his story had only just begun. The human who gave everything for an alien child had planted a seed of defiance that no army could crush. His sacrifice was not an ending, it was the start of a legend, and legends never die.